What's going on, you guys? Spideyco64 back here once again with yet another Star Wars episode review. And on today's episode review, we are here to talk about Ahsoka parts 3 and 4 here today. So with that being said, let's just pretty much get right into it. So actually, before we do kind of go into the review itself, I first of all want to just say, I kind of addressed maybe sort of the elephant in the room here, and that is, why is this video coming out so, I guess, late? Or why didn't I do an episode review on part 3, which I think is called Toil and Trouble or something like that. I don't remember, but the main reason is because this episode, this week's episode and last week's episode, I really felt like should have been released together, so that way it could have been a better kind of way to experience sort of the show, sort of in general, I think, and all that sort of stuff. Like, it would have been so much better, I think, in my opinion, and I really gotta just say this. Part 3 just was way too short, and I kind of was thinking it would be much better if we talked about this week's episode and last week's episode in one video, and also because the reason was because I was busy. Just life stuff just kind of just gets in the way and all that sort of stuff, but that's not really that's not really what you want to hear, and all that sort of stuff. So let's actually get into the review. All right, so the story basically finally begins where, Rebels ended off, of course, where Sabine is looking at the mural on Lothal and all that sort of stuff. She then hops onto Ahsoka's, ship, and then they go off to Cetos, where our main villains are, I don't know why I did that, or our main villains, Baylan Skoll, Shin Hati, and Morgan Elsbeth are, constructing their next part of their master plan. So episode 3 begins with Ahsoka and also Sabine having a little kind of training montage. Sabine is trying to get used to wielding a lightsaber once again. It's been a while for her and all that sort of stuff. And, Ahsoka then teaches Ahsoka a couple of, lessons and all that sort of stuff. And this episode right here was really kind of where there were some controversial things among the fan base, which, I mean, what you're going to do, there's always going to be controversy. And that is sort of, I think now I'm actually going to discuss about this. Okay, so one of the few things going into the series that a lot of people were fearing, and including myself in a way, which was a lot of people were worried that they were going to make Sabine force sensitive, even though she has never shown any force sensitivity before and all that sort of stuff. However, though, this episode actually kind of puts that a little bit to rest. However, there's still some people still don't really like it and all that sort of stuff. And most of that is more or less because of the material we've gotten later and all that sort of stuff, which, okay, does require a bit of some explanation. So what Ahsoka explains in this episode 3, is that the Force is in all living things. This is what Obi-Wan, Yoda talked about in the first 2 Star Wars movies. That is something that I think a lot of fans probably forgot all about. The Force surrounds us, binds us, trying to paraphrase Obi-Wan here and all that sort of stuff. And, all that sort of stuff. But however, though, Ahsoka does point out that it does acquire a bit of some talent to use the Force and all that sort of stuff. And another thing also too is that I really do. This is an idea that has always been the case. George Lucas, this was his idea for the Force and all that sort of stuff. And this is something that I think, especially maybe people who are big George Lucas fans, people who have, defended the prequel trilogy long ever since those movies have come out, probably said, yes, that is what Star Wars is all about. and all that sort of stuff. So the way I sort of grasp this and the way I sort of see this is, and this is the perfect sort of analogy that basically it is. Anyone can learn a certain martial arts, whether it's Tai Chi, karate or whatever and all that sort of stuff. Anyone can learn it and all that sort of stuff. Some, of course, live it and breathe it and all that sort of stuff. Like there's the Jedi and all that sort of stuff. And then there's some that are extremely talented in the art. And especially, that's the same thing with Star Wars. There are some, beings out there in the galaxy that are just so strong in the Force. Characters like Yoda, Qui-Gon Jinn, Mace Windu, Plo Koon, of course, Anakin Skywalker, Luke Skywalker, all these different kinds of characters and all that sort of stuff. So Sabine so the way I get this is that maybe Sabine could probably use the Force. It's just that for her, especially since she is Mandalorian, it's gonna take quite a while for her and all that sort of stuff to get to that point. That's just something that I really wanted to just get straight out of the way here. And I also really love the scene where Sabine's sitting at a table, right? And then there's a little cup that's right there. She's trying to use the Force to pull it. That's every Star Wars fan. That right there is every Star Wars fan trying to use the Force when they're kids, which I even still try to do now. I love that. I just love that scene. Okay, so going back here to the main story, what's going on right here with the story here now? We're gonna talk here about the Ahsoka and also the Sabine part right here, and also there's Huey. So they exit out of hyperspace and they find out that the main villains are building this big old ring. Now, to them, we don't really know what it is, but to the audience, we know that the villains are trying to build a hyperspace ring so they can reach Grand Admiral Thrawn, which basically means that they're going to be traveling not even to the unknown regions, but traveling to a whole entirely new galaxy, which is just crazy just to think about. The world building in this series is really crazy. I really gotta say, this is really some parts of the show that I've absolutely just been loving and all that sort of stuff. And then what happens next is that Sabine and Ahsoka have to, work together to try to, make sure Huey can get close to the hyperspace ring and scan it and see what's going on with it and all that sort of stuff. And while that happens, Shin Hati and also Morak, the mysterious Inquisitor, we're going to talk about him later in the video, but both Shin and Morak both get into their fighters and then, of course, are planning to shoot him down. They are able to shoot down the ship temporarily, and then probably the coolest part of the episode is probably here, and I do not care what anyone else says. Literally, Ahsoka walks out of the ship, 2 lightsabers in hand. She's in a space suit, and then they're trying to fire onto her, and then she's just deflecting them. That's just straight out of the Clone Wars right there. That's another scene that is really controversial, that really has rubbed people the wrong way, but I'm just going to say this. I don't care. All right? And I could go on a tangent about this, but I'm just not. I want to just get straight for this. Okay, so Huey is able to, scan the ship, finds out that it's a big old hyperspace ring and all that sort of stuff. And Sabine and Ahsoka are like, oh shit, that's their ticket to get to, well, of course the ticket is the map to get to Thrawn, but that is the ultimate ticket right there and all that sort of stuff. And then basically what happens is now they're going to get ready and prepared for the battle that is ensuing. While that is happening, back to the Alliance fleet, or at least I'm calling it the Alliance fleet, back on the Home One, which I just figure out, the Home One, which was the big calamari ship, that's the same ship from Return of the Jedi. I did not know that. A lot of people were saying, oh, it's the same exact room. I'm like, it is. Just not the exact same. I mean, it doesn't look... It's a faithful recreation and all that sort of stuff, but it just kind of doesn't match the vibe of the original trilogy and all that sort of stuff. So going back to, what's going on here, what's happening here is that Hera is trying to convince the New Republic, especially, Chancellor Mon Mothma, once again played by Genevieve O'Reilly in this, series, which I kind of have to say, I kind of wish they would have made her a little bit more different, because she literally looked like she walked off the set of Andor. Yeah. I made sure I didn't say Endor, not. They sound so similar, okay? But anyways, getting back to the whole entire meeting here, not talking about how Genevieve O'Reilly basically looks like the way she does in Andor, which excited for Andor season 2. Oh, by the way. So going back from there, basically what happens is Hera's trying to convince several different leaders of the New Republic that, hey, Grand Admiral Thrawn, he's out there and all that sort of stuff. But one of the generals is like, nah, he's dead. Or, no, one of the politicians says, nah, he's dead. You only want to go out there just so you can find Ezra Bridger and all that sort of stuff. And then one of the politicians really rubs Hera the wrong way. The senator guy that's next to the right to Mon Mothma. From what I figured out, and this is something that I would have even not known if people want to tell me, but that character is the father of the main character from Star Wars Resistance. I believe his name is Kaz or something like that. I don't know. I have not seen Star Wars Resistance, nor do I have any interest in that show, because it's in the sequel trilogy and looks even more sillier than Rebels. And no. Resistance is officially the worst Star Wars animated series. Just saying that. But yeah, that guy is just rubs Hera the wrong way, and then Hera claps back at him saying, "Dude, have you ever fought in a war? Have you?" And then he's like, "Nah. I mean, hey, I'm a politician. I'm sitting right here in Hosnian Prime, chilling out." And I'm like sitting here thinking, oh man, that asshole definitely died. And when the Resistance, so they took the planet Ilum, right? And then they built a big old laser in it. They shoot up to the sky. It's a really amazing, well-made scene. And then use it like hyperspace. Why am I mentioning the sequels? But no, what I then find out is that guy survives the destruction of Hosnian Prime, which I'm like, I hate that. All right, so basically, the point of the matter is, Hera does not have enough assistants to go out and support Hera and Ahsoka. And so that then leads to the 4th episode, which is titled Fallen Jedi. When I saw that, I just thought, Jedi Fallen Order. Kind of funny there. So this episode right here, I'm just really going to go really through this because the whole episode is more or less, heavily action-based. So here's what happens. So Hue is trying to repair the communicator, or the communication system. Sabine is trying to get armored up. She has her armor on. Glocking, her guns and all that sort of stuff, her Mandalorian guns. And then, the HK droids then start attacking Hue temporarily, but Ahsoka and Sabine are able to take them out. Hue tells them to go and get the map to stop Morgan Elsbeth and whatnot, sort of have you. And then what happens next is, in the Red Forest, Sabine fights Shin Hati, and then Ahsoka fights Morak, the Inquisitor, the Inquisitor in the show. All right, so this Inquisitor, we've been wanting to know whose his identity has been, and who is he? Nobody. And I actually like that. So okay, here's the kind of the thing about that. I ultimately think at the end of the day, so what happens is that he's. Once again, these dumbass Inquisitors using, the freaking helicopter bladed lightsaber, trying to take down Ahsoka, which, Ahsoka's like, bruh, you're so easy, which actually plays a little bit later into the episode. Of course, the fight with Balaam Skull, which I will get to. So, it's kind of, and it's very samurai-esque. It also reminds me a lot of the Obi-Wan and Darth Maul final duel, where, and all that sort of stuff, where Obi-Wan easily takes down Maul and all that sort of stuff. While here, it reminds me a lot of that. So Ahsoka cuts through him, and then what actually happens after that is the guy turns into green dust, like Night Sister magic, which honestly makes him even more interesting. But I'm just really going to outright say this. I'm glad that he wasn't a familiar character to us people. Or I guess I should say, I'm glad that he isn't someone that we know. I rather prefer him just be really a nobody. I actually kind of prefer that. Because, number one, would not make sense for him to be Ezra Bridger. Even though I kind of would have loved that theory, but it just doesn't really make any sense. The same thing also goes for Galen Merrick, which, here's just the thing. Why would we make Galen Merrick a fucking Inquisitor? It would be better if he was, I don't know. So that's that. All right, so then what happens is that Ahsoka leaves, and what's actually funny, what actually happens beforehand is that Huey tells Ahsoka and Sabine to stay together, and Ahsoka goes off by herself instead of dealing with Shin Hati, which she could easily just, scare her, because, Shin Hati and Ahsoka are not on the same level, and then both Sabine and Ahsoka could go off and take down Baylan Skoll. So what happens next is Morgan Elsbeth is already on the hyperspace ring. What happens next is Baylan Skoll is just, this guy is just chilling right here. Chilling down, he's like, Anakin spoke very highly of you. And then all that sort of stuff. Ahsoka's like, I'm not here to discuss my past. And then he's like, keeps going on, says, everyone in the Order knew who Anakin Skywalker was. Only a few lived to see what he became. And all that sort of stuff. And then, it then turns, one of the biggest things about this episode 4 is the lightsaber fight scenes, or the lightsaber duels. This has got to be the best lightsaber duels we have seen in the Disney era so far. This pretty much combines the original trilogy and a little bit of the prequel trilogy together. And this fight scene really does remind me of, Ahsoka, or not Ahsoka, Vader versus Luke on Cloud City, and a little bit also too on the Death Star, on the second Death Star. So, Ahsoka, with only one blade, and all that sort of stuff. Baylan Skoll with one, and Baylan Skoll is really powerful, and whatnot, sort of have you. This is a really big battle for Ahsoka and all that sort of stuff, and she's kind of losing. But anyways, what happens here next is that she tries to, conveniently have a rock, tries to grab the rock, or, the map, burns her hand and all that sort of stuff. Baylan Skoll is, basically winning this fight pretty much. Shin Hati, who pretty much runs away from Ahsoka's battle. And before that, what actually happens here is that Sabine is trying to use the Force. Shin kind of flinches, and he's like, you have no power. And then Sabine uses one of her wrist rockets and then blasts her. It's like those clones always said. Watch those wrist Watch those wrist rockets. Yeah, that's what I meant to say. So what then happens next is, of course, Shin then comes from there. Ahsoka is like, wait, where's Sabine? And then, right here, this is like a where I was like, oh shit, she clenches her fist, throws her against the wall, kind of remind me a little bit of, I know I'm saying it reminds me of, and it's not supposed to be a parallel, I know, but I do vividly remember that this is a move that Vader did in Rogue One. While he's there in this hallway scene, he takes one of the rebels, clenches his fist and tosses one of the rebels towards the wall. The reason why I mention that is because Ahsoka used a bit of the dark side right there. Pretty crazy right there. Okay, so kind of going from there, what happens next is just crazy. So Ahsoka does that to Shin, and then Baylan Skoll is just, absolutely unleashing hell, knocks Ahsoka off of the ledge, off of the platform that they're in. You know, Sabine has the rock in her hand. Is like, hey, yo, I'm going to shoot it if you don't step, back. But in Ban Skull, he's looking through the force. He's like, hey, yo, I know what you want to do. You want to find that Ezra Bridger guy. So what's going to happen here is that, hey, I can get you to him. You just got to give me that map. And Sabine conceals and gives the orb to Ban Skull. And the hyperspace ring is able to calculate it and all that sort of stuff. And whatnot, sort of have you. And then what then happens next is that Shin Hati basically force chokes Sabine, which is like, oh shit, and all that sort of stuff. And then Ban Skull's like, nah, knock that shit off. I promised her. I gave her my word. So they then capture her, put her onto the ship. And then what happens there is actually, and this is something that I kind of broadly just kind of didn't really mention. But what happens actually is that Hera actually leads a small squadron of X-Wings. Carson Teva is there. And for some reason, Zeb isn't there for some reason. And all that sort of stuff. That's the one part that I got to really admit. Damn, it would have been cool if Zeb was there. And that Callus guy that a lot of people like. I don't really get it. I don't really get Star Wars fans sometimes. But no, the big old hyperspace ring has the coordinates. And then sets into, then basically goes into hyperspace, and it almost destroys all the ships. But of course, Hera, and oh yeah, this is something else I did forget to mention. Yeah, Jason Sindula is in this show as well. Green hair kid that doesn't look like an Oompa Loompa. That's good. That's good right there. Okay, so what then happens next is, well, this is how the episode ends. Okay, so we're thinking, oh, where's Ahsoka? Is she just chilling down the cliff and all that sort of stuff? But no, what happens is that we transition, from the water to the world between worlds. Ahsoka wakes up in the world between worlds. And what happens next is, I know a lot of fans were waiting for this. She hears a familiar voice. Hears someone said, I didn't expect to see you this soon. And he says, it's good to see you, Snips. And then the camera, or she turns around, and Anakin Skywalker is right there. Hayden Christensen, once again, is back playing Anakin Skywalker. And this right here holds a lot. And this right here, I felt more emotional than in the Kenobi series. I'm sorry. And that's how the episode ends. So, wow, guys. Wow. Episode 4. These last few couple episodes, man. Well, I think episode 3 was too short for my liking. I still didn't think it wasn't too bad. But this episode 4, amazing. It had amazing battles. I'm really intrigued in this story. Characterization is really good, I think, and all that sort of stuff. And the stakes just feel high in this series. So now, we are basically out of trailer footage here now. And now we are going into the nitty-gritty of this show. I gotta say, I have no idea what's going to happen in the next episode. I don't know if it's going to be an Ahsoka and an Anakin-centered episode. When are we going to see Grand Admiral Thrawn? We know he's going to show up. We just don't know when. So that right there is just super exciting for me, and I can't wait to see what Dave Filoni is cooking for all the Star Wars fans. That's pretty much all I have to say. I know this is a bit of a longer episode review. I don't think I'm gonna do this with episode 5. Gonna have to depend on how the episode is. If it's maybe too short or all that sort of stuff, which I don't think it is. So that being said, guys, thank you all so much for watching this video. If you did, leave a like, comment down below, maybe share this video just to see. Trying to see how many people react to this. And with that being said, I will see all you guys in the next video. See you all later.